Hello and welcome to Girlfriends. I'm Danielle Bean. I'm a wife and a mom, and I'm on a mission to help you know your worth as a woman so you can find peace, balance, and joy in family living. This week, I am talking with special guest Grace Emily Stark about how we can raise our daughters to be strong and confident young women. Such an important thing for us to be discussing. I can't wait to share this conversation with you. Let's get started. Hey, girlfriend. Welcome to the newest episode of the Girlfriends podcast. So thrilled you're able to join me here this week. So this week, we're in this topic of how to empower young women. And I mean that in a good way, right? In the very best way. Some people might have a hesitation about that, right? But I mean it in the very best way. How do we teach them to love themselves, especially preteens and teens? And how do we teach them about their natural fertility? How do we teach them about becoming women and the gift that that is? How do we underscore that beautiful gift of womanhood for young women in our lives? So my special guest today is going to be Grace Emily Stark, and she's doing some really important work in that area. And she's going to be sharing about some new resources that are available for moms, especially, but also for women from all walks of life to need to grow in this area. But one thing that I hear from women about a lot is they're worried about talking to their preteen or their young girls about ways that their bodies will change, especially as they're reaching teen years and puberty. And it's kind of a tricky thing, right? Sometimes they're uncomfortable talking about these things. And people are often looking to me for like a resource, like, can I just hand my daughter a book? And well, no, you cannot just hand your daughter a book. There is a book that I would recommend that you hand your daughter. And this is one that I've recommended for years. And it's not a faith-based book at all. It's actually published by American Girl, and it's called The Care and Keeping of You. And I wanted to mention this resource, and I will have the link over in the show notes at goodcatholic.com. So you can check it out for yourself. But what I found was that it's a secular resource. And okay, I'm going to say this with one caveat. I haven't looked at it. I don't know if there's new editions that are out that might have something that's, anti-Catholic in it, or, something that might go against our values. I can't speak for the newest edition. I don't know. But I have really appreciated having a copy of this book for years and sharing it with my girls, because it's just kind of a no nonsense, very positive, welcoming way of just teaching them some basics about ways that they physically will be changing, and just doing it in a way that's very positive, I found, and encouraging. And, that can be a starting place for conversation with you and your young girls. But my guest today is going to be sharing about some more resources that also are not necessarily faith-based, which is, again, a really interesting thing, because then you have resources that are in line with our Catholic faith, but that also you can be sharing with people who don't share our Catholic faith, or that you can share with people that might be interested, but might be put off by something being stamped specifically Catholic in an approach with these things. So I found it was a really interesting conversation. I hope you're going to enjoy it. Take a listen. I am excited to have a special guest joining us here on Girlfriends today. Grace Emily Stark is here with us. Grace is the editor of Natural Womanhood. Grace holds an MA in bioethics and health policy from Loyola University, Chicago, and a BS in healthcare management and policy from Georgetown University. She's a recent alumna of the Paul Ramsey Institute Fellowship at the Center for Bioethics and Culture. And in 2019, she was awarded a Robert Novak Alumni Fund Journalism Fellowship to investigate the negative effects of birth control. Grace and her husband are a certified teaching couple for the Couple to Couple League and reside in Texas with their 3, soon to be 4 children. Grace Emily Stark, welcome to Girlfriends. So glad you're here with me.
Thanks so much for having me, Danielle. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk about Natural Womanhood. How did you get started in this kind of a ministry? Maybe you can describe how you got started in it, but also exactly what it is that you're doing.
Sure. Well, Natural Womanhood is a wonderful nonprofit based out of San Antonio, Texas. I live in the Austin area, but our formal organization is based out of San Antonio. For those familiar with their Texas geography.
It's all one big place to me.
Yes, I know. It probably means nothing to anybody who doesn't live here. But so our founder, 10, I think almost 11 years ago now, and his wife, they co-founded Natural Womanhood together because they came back to the church later in their marriage, learned about the benefits of fertility awareness and natural family planning late in their marriage, and
Mm-hmm.
just started really taking in the benefits of it from the couples that they were seeing around them who had been using it throughout the entire course of their marriage, just the closeness that they seem to have.
Yeah.
And the fact that, these women in these relationships hadn't been pumping their bodies full of synthetic hormones and dealing with the, fallout health wise from that. And so they just got started thinking like, wow, why isn't there more out there about this? And realize, okay, there's a good amount of faith-based stuff out there about natural
Mm-hmm.
family planning. There's the Couple to Couple League, there's Marquette, there's Billings, and all of these great organizations doing what they do, and really, but largely coming from a background of faith, which is obvious, right?
Sure.
This is like one of the best kept secrets of the Catholic Church.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really only been a Catholic thing up until like a hot minute ago.
Right.
And so Gerard and Anna, the founders of Natural Womanhood, realized like, whoa, this should not just be a Catholic thing. This is fantastic for relationships. It's fantastic for women's health. And there needs to be a resource out there that can address that kind of chasm between women of faith and women who might not necessarily come from a faith background, but are starting to
Mm-hmm.
question maybe the wisdom of taking a pill full of synthetic hormones every single morning when they do their darndest to buy milk and beef and everything else and eggs for themselves and their families that are hormone free, right?
Right.
So they created Natural Womanhood, which is an evidence-based resource to promote natural family planning and fertility awareness for women's health, for the betterment of relationships, and just kind of exists because we believe that all women can learn to understand and claim their natural bodies, their natural menstrual cycles in particular, as good and healthy and beautiful. So
Yeah. Oh,
that's where
that's a
Natural Womanhood got
countercultural thing.
started.
Yeah.
Yes, very countercultural. And because behind the scenes, a lot of us are Catholic, we're people of faith.
Sure.
You're not going to find anything on Natural Womanhood that is antithetical to the
Mm-hmm.
faith. You'll see in a lot of secular resources about fertility awareness that, condoms are okay in the fertile period and that sort of thing. We are not proponents of that at Natural
Sure.
Womanhood. And actually, we wouldn't be anyway, even if we weren't Catholic, because we really pride ourselves on being very strictly evidence-based. And if you're using a condom during your fertile phase, you're using a less effective method of birth control than a fertility awareness method that tells you to simply abstain.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're only going to be as effective at preventing pregnancy as the least effective method that you choose. So
Mm-hmm.
that evidence actually isn't on the side of using condoms during the fertile period if you're really seriously trying to prevent pregnancy
Yeah.
during a
I
particular
love that it's
cycle.
science-based and that it's not that there's faith, of course, present among many of the big players in this
Mhm.
organization, but it's not faith first, right? Because this makes it
Yep.
something that we can readily share with people and they
Yeah.
don't have to feel like we're shoving our religion in their face because so often that's what I've come away from Catholic teaching on sex, marriage, and birth control, thinking
Yes.
like, this is information every human being needs. Like, this
Yes.
is the truth about who we are and what we're made for and how freeing
Absolutely.
it is, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and we really see that. We don't, and so we've had like some strange bedfellows, I
I
should say,
bet.
with this movement, because we do find alignment on more left, more progressive, more secular sources that are
Hmm.
saying that are into like crunchier living and green
Yeah.
sex. I love that term. Um, that love what we're doing on that front, and it because we don't put that faith forward, like facade on everything.
Right.
It's somewhere you can send, and physicians really love us for that too, because
Hmm.
even practicing Catholic physicians don't all have Catholic patients. And so
Yeah.
even if they're, not keen on the birth control pill, want their, whether they're teenage patients or adult women patients to understand their bodies, understand their cycles, they're not going to want to necessarily send them to a faith-based resource, which up until Natural Womanhood existed, there really was only that.
Mm-hmm.
and kind of freak out their patients. Like, oh
Right.
man, I'm just trying to go to an OBGYN here. I'm not trying to like be converted, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we've found that physicians really love what they do too, because they know they can send their patients to our website and know that they're just going to get the facts, just going to get the evidence. But then again, not feel like morally culpable, like they would if they sent someone to Cosmo.
Right.
or,
Right.
or, Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
And, most of those places don't get fertility awareness right anyway, because
Mm-hmm.
they compare it to the rhythm method. And modern
Right. I
methods of
know.
fertility awareness are not that. I always compare it to, the rhythm method is like Jerry Seinfeld's car phone is to the iPhone is in your pocket.
I get it.
Like you can see, okay, well, the idea was there.
Yes.
Understanding that women had cyclical fertility and that this could be used in a family planning capacity. But to
Right.
say that the car phone is the same as the iPhone is just as wrong as saying the rhythm method is a modern evidence-based, biomarker-based fertility awareness method or method of natural family planning.
Right. And places like Planned Parenthood aren't going to want to tell you that, right? They want to keep
No,
it in the
no.
old fashioned category. They want to make it look like it's not relevant
Yes.
because, frankly, they're not going to make any money off of you if you
No,
are using natural family planning. There's no money to be
no,
made there.
no,
Yeah.
none
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So part of what you're trying to do is help young women in general, just
Hmm.
to love their bodies. And that
Yes.
is tough stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
In the world today. So those of us who are parents, I know that this is something I've been very conscious of,
Hmm.
raising young women today, is that there's so much in our world that is against young women and their bodies. Like I look at like the stuff that's going on with transgenderism, and
Yeah.
they're like, there's these young women, these poor girls who are like 14, 15, 16 years old, who are like, they think I guess I'm in the wrong body, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
not comfortable in my body. Well, guess what? No girl that age is comfortable in her body, right?
Yeah.
There's so much going on there. Can you talk a little bit about how Natural Womanhood is seeking to serve that next
Yeah.
generation?
You've hit the nail on the head there. Because, and I've pointed this out in other articles that I've written in other outlets that, this whole movement to seize on to that natural discomfort that
Mm,
we all feel in our pubescent bodies. Like,
right.
let's all take a step back for a minute to being like 13 or 14, painful as that may be, right?
Yeah.
And ask yourself, did I feel comfortable in my body? I absolutely guarantee you will not find a single person who will say, yeah, I felt totally
Yeah.
comfortable in
Amazing.
my body at 12, 13, 14, right?
Yeah.
Chances are a lot of women will tell you the same thing now, right?
Sure.
Adult women will tell you that now. And
Hmm.
so I really think that this movement has seized on normal, awkward, teenage, preteen, adolescent, just weirdness
Yeah.
and made it into be something just that
That's
it's
bad.
not. And
Right.
unfortunately, when young girls we need to acknowledge that this period of time is very tumultuous, that it is very confusing,
Hmm.
and then provide these girls the context that they need to understand what's happening in their bodies. Because, yeah, if you have no context for why all of a sudden you're getting boobs and hips and, why all of a sudden you're bleeding
Hmm.
every month,
Yeah.
yeah, that's going to confuse the heck out of you. It's going to scare you. It's going to make you afraid of your own anatomy and physiology. And so I really think we're really reaping what we've sown in terms of keeping young women, young girls in the dark
Hmm.
about their bodies. And we're really just the chickens are coming home to roost with this transgender movement and
Right.
just the utter blindness that we have left young girls in. And it's inexcusable. But
Hmm.
we have some programs at Natural Womanhood that are specifically aimed at addressing that, because we have,
Okay.
seen that this is the core of the problem, is that women don't understand their bodies.
Hmm.
And it's all well and good when, my husband and I are volunteering with the Couple to Couple League, and we get um, a couple that's preparing for marriage, and we start teaching them, and the woman's like, whoa, I never knew this about my body, my cycle. Why
Yeah.
wasn't I taught this before? I'm so glad I've learned this. Now I know I don't have to use the pill. Now I know I can get help for infertility. But we're seeing couples in their 20s, their 30s, preparing for marriage, that's, 15, 20 years later than these conversations should have been happening, that we
Right.
should have been giving these women in particular, and boys to a certain extent as well. But that's kind of a topic for another day, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is information that these young women should have had 10, 15, 20 years ago. And some of them are coming at it too little, too late. They've already really struggled with a painful period, with not understanding why their body went through these changes. They've already struggled with, wondering if motherhood's really for them. Is this whole lived experience of being a woman really for them? And, they've probably fallen prey, a lot of them, to the lies of the sexual revolution.
Sure.
We've had couples that they're cohabitating, they're using the pill, all that sort of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's too little, too late to get engaged women to start reframing. And it is that at that point, it is a radical reframing that we're asking of these women to
Mm-hmm.
undo everything that the culture has taught them about their bodies and themselves over the
Yeah.
last 10, 15, 20 years. And so at Natural Womanhood, we said, okay, let's get them 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
How do we do that? And
Mm-hmm.
so one thing that we've come up with recently is a program that teaches moms how to talk to their daughters
Oh,
about
that's
these
great.
things, specifically geared towards moms of preteen daughters. So girls who are like
Mm-hmm.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? That 20 years prior to getting engaged, where we need to be getting them.
Right.
And teaching moms how they can talk to them in age appropriate ways, in ways that aren't going to rob them of their innocence, that don't get into it's not sex ed, it's
Right.
not the nitty gritty of how do you avoid pregnancy, how do you avoid STDs, all that sort of thing that frankly does them no service at 8 years old, but
Mm-hmm.
and doesn't do them a lot of service even in high school when they are taught it then. But getting them used to seeing the changes that they're already undergoing or are going to undergo as
Mm-hmm.
good and
Yeah.
and beautiful and oriented towards this great gift of motherhood that God has instilled within our bodies. And we don't, again, in line with all of our other content at Natural Womanhood, we don't come from a faith-based angle on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's more evidence-based, it's more fact-based. We go through, here's what the changes are you're going to experience are, and we contextualize them. That's more
Mm-hmm.
important than anything. Is you're going to start developing breast tissue. Okay, why? Well, because you are going to be able to conceive and carry a child, and then ultimately feed that child with your body. And so
Mm-hmm.
right now your body's preparing for all of that, even though it might not take place for another, 20 years. But getting them to see the broader context of the changes that are happening in their bodies now, and not just in their bodies, but in their minds. Why
Mm-hmm.
why am I interested in boys all of a sudden?
Right.
And do I need to feel weird about that? Do I need to feel shame about that? No. We can give all of these girls what every preteen and teen girl wants, which is what? Just to know that they're normal.
Right. The piece about that whole scenario, right? Like,
Right?
I'm normal, right? This
Yeah,
is
that you're
normal.
normal. And not just that, but you are good. That these changes
Mm-hmm.
are normal. They are good. They are beautiful. And when we were developing the program, we spoke with a bunch of moms. We realized we need to actually sit down with moms who have daughters of this age and
Mm-hmm.
ask them, what's prohibiting you from doing this right now? And what
Mm-hmm.
so many of them told us was that, well, they had terrible experiences themselves, right? And this is
Right.
a multi-generational
For
issue
sure.
in the
Yeah.
making. And so for so many of these moms, and they're, my age, in their 30s, early 40s, with daughters either in puberty or approaching puberty,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, you know what? My mom didn't help me out with this. Some of them said, I think she did the best she could, but felt awkward about it. Some of them said,
Mm-hmm.
my mom's the one who made me feel like it was dirty and unclean
Yeah.
to be
That's so
bleeding.
sad.
Just some really heartbreaking stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
a really strong commitment from these moms that was heartening to do better by their own daughters, right? To be the
Mm-hmm.
ones to break that cycle. but just being really unsure of how to go about it. How do I say
Right.
enough without saying too much? How do I not say the wrong thing? I'm not a fertility awareness expert. So how do I even start diving into this?
Yeah.
Um, and then, more importantly, how do I not freak my daughter out?
Yes. Because let me tell you, I did with one of my daughters, freak her out,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
right.
it can happen.
It's easy to do, when you haven't had the approach that you needed, that
Mhm.
gentle kind of
Sure.
contextualizing. It's really easy to freak a 10-year-old out when you tell them like, "Oh, hey, by the way, you're going to bleed every month for the, next
What
like
are you talking
30
about?
years, 40 years." Um but yeah, so we ease moms into it. We encourage moms work through the feelings that you have
Mhm.
about your body first so that
Right.
you're not coloring how you speak to your daughters this way. And we
Yeah.
have resources to help moms do that
Right.
in this program and to
Mhm.
just identify how they feel about themselves and to get in their right mind and hearts over it as well.
Mhm.
And then we give them all the materials and we give them a step-by-step way. And we have 10 videos that are really engaging that you can watch together. Um, and then some PDF handouts with diagrams and, everything's beautiful. We had a wonderful designer and,
Oh,
we're
that's
just
great.
really proud of it because the
Mhm.
feedback that we're getting from moms and daughters speaks for itself. We've been told, I think my very favorite review is a woman who said, "I'm loving the mindset shift
Oh,
that
that's
I'm seeing in
beautiful.
myself."
So
Speaking,
these are materials for moms to go through on their own,
yes.
right? Before sharing anything with their daughters.
Yeah. So we have some materials that
Mhm.
moms can kind of go through on their own, and then the series of 10 videos that they can sit down and go through with their daughters. And then the other materials can provide more information, more context as needed. And again, it's all up to moms. We really felt
Mhm.
like it was super important for moms to be the ones to be having these conversations with their daughters.
Right.
It would build that relationship, build that trust that can really be lacking, especially during this age, right?
Mhm.
When girls might be starting to retreat into themselves a little bit more because they feel
Yeah.
awkward and uncomfortable and don't know who to turn to. To let
Mhm.
daughters know beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, you can come to mom with these questions and she will answer you. You don't have to go to your peers. You don't have to go to
Yeah.
social media. I'm the one who's here for you. I love you the most. I've been through this too. I want to do this with you together. And we're just, yeah, seeing some really awesome fruit from that just in the reviews that moms are leaving us. And it's been very
Mhm.
gratifying and exciting to
I
see and to
love
know
that.
that we're doing something to reach girls earlier with just,
Yeah.
basic science,
Mhm.
honestly, but
Mhm.
contextualizing it in
Yeah.
this broader idea of female bodies are good. They aren't some fluke, a fluke of nature, that everything was designed to happen this way to you
Right.
and that it's all oriented toward this higher, beautiful purpose of physical
Yeah.
motherhood someday.
That's really beautiful. That's a beautiful way to approach it. But like you said, like every daughter is going to be different and have different
Mhm.
needs and questions at different times. And so, do you have any basic rule of thumb that you might suggest for like if a mom's wondering, should I talk to her about this? How much information should I share? Like, how do you gauge that?
Yeah. So we feel confident that you can share all of the information in our program with your daughter without feeling like you've given her too much or too little. We
Hmm.
really feel like we've hit that sweet spot of just enough information to uh, kind of contextualize what's going on, to give them the background for it. Um, and again, without going into like the mechanics of sex or anything
Hmm.
like that, if you're,
Right.
really concerned about introducing that to your 8-year-old yet.
Yeah.
Um, and our rule of thumb is, your daughter best. You know her temperament best. And you also know what changes she's going through and what her friend group is going through. We tell
Hmm.
moms it's great to do this before they start menstruating. That doesn't mean if they've already had their first period, all hope is lost. We encourage them. We've had moms tell us, I'm doing this with my 8-year-old now, but my 16, 17-year-old, who's been having periods for 5 or 6 years has been like watching in the background and
Yeah.
telling me, oh, wow, I'm learning a lot, mom, so
Yeah.
it's up to you as a mom to kind of gauge, is this information that your daughter will be receptive to? We believe that it is. We believe that girls of pretty much every age are open to this knowledge. I
Hmm.
have a 4-year-old who, when I was, I guess I must have been like 15 months postpartum or something with my
Hmm.
third. And my 4-year-old actually followed me into the bathroom, as they do. At the time, I think she was 3. Um, and I took a used pad out of my underwear, and she hadn't seen that in
Mm.
like living memory because I had been pregnant and breastfeeding with the delayed return to my cycles. So the first time she saw it, she was like, "Whoa, mom, what is that? Like, why are you bleeding?" Like a 3-year-old knows what blood looks like,
Right.
right?
Sure.
And I just told her, well, this is my period. Mommies, adult women get this. It's because I don't have a baby in my body this month. And next month, if there isn't a baby, it'll come out again. This is the blood that keeps the baby warm and cozy and protected. But since there's not a baby there this month, it's going to come out for a couple of days and then it'll stop and it doesn't hurt me. And it'll happen again until there's a new baby in my body. And she just
Hmm.
was like, oh, okay. And walked out, and it didn't have to be this like big, scary,
Yeah.
sit down conversation. Invite your kids into, I don't want to say you have to invite them into the bathroom with you every time you go, but moms know
But if
kids
it
just
happens,
will often follow you in there. And so use it as a teaching opportunity. I guess that's
yeah.
what I
I
did.
think
And
that's
just,
great advice. Kind of going with their
yeah,
natural questions and just, I think, having raised 8 kids, well, they're not all quite raised yet, but myself, I've come to realize like with some of those tricky conversations, we sometimes turn them into a bigger deal in our own heads than they are in our kids' heads,
yeah,
right? Like they're just asking a question. And if you answer it
exactly.
at an age appropriate level, even if it's a
Yes.
super general response, they're often really satisfied and they're going to skip off to play, right? Like, and that was fine.
Absolutely. Yep. Just answer their questions at the most basic level.
Right.
Sometimes there'll be a follow-up question, sometimes there won't. A lot of times just answering their questions honestly right off the bat at an age appropriate level is enough for them.
Yeah.
And that's how these conversations can build naturally over
Hmm.
your child's lifetime. If you
Yeah.
haven't been having those conversations with your daughter and she's 8 or 9 and you're starting to notice like, oh, wow, she's got some breast buds forming, or if she's
Hmm.
got a little friend over who, said, oh, I started my period,
Hmm.
these are really good cues that if you haven't already started having these conversations with your daughter, it would be a really good idea to start.
Right.
And if you're overwhelmed with how to even go about that, that's what our program is really for, is just, here's what you can tell her and when. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's really just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, we're just really excited to see where it's going to go and
Yeah.
how it's going to be part of just kind of righting the ship on our culture.
An
Um,
important part of
yeah.
riding the ship for sure. So what's
Hmm.
been some of the impact that you've seen with people who've gone through the program, or what have been some of the effects, the results you're seeing in the daughters of these women as they're kind of implementing the information that they receive from Natural Womanhood?
Yeah. So the reviews are really great so far. We've had moms say, I'm enjoying the mindset shift I'm having in my own body, talking so positively for the first time in my life about
Hmm.
my own body, about women's bodies in general. Um, Daughters are excited that they're learning something,
Yeah.
that's so deeply personal to them. They if you can remember when you first learned about natural family planning or fertility awareness, that like, wow, why didn't anybody ever tell me this before? This is really
Right.
great information. And just that kind of excitement of like, this isn't all just happening to me willy nilly. It's not something that's, totally outside of my control and understanding.
Hmm.
Young girls have that same experience, that same feeling.
Yeah.
only they don't have to add the "why didn't anybody tell me this before" part, right?
Right,
We can
right.
head that
Yeah,
off at the pass when we start
exactly.
telling them before they menstruate or soon after they've started menstruating, right? They never
Yeah,
have to feel that part of it. They can just feel the excitement and the empowerment that
yeah.
comes from, oh, okay, this is going to happen to me. All right. I know I have someone to go to who I can talk to about it. I know that it's normal. I know other girls my age are going to be experiencing this. And so we're just hearing from moms that their daughters are kind of taking it in stride. Like,
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
okay, this is good to know. Like, thanks, mom, and
Right.
just enjoying having the time set apart to do this with their daughters, because we recommend it's 10 videos. Take one video a week, or whatever pace you prefer, set a time aside. We even
Hmm.
have, if your daughter's crafty, we have some activity ideas. For young girls who might really want to like visualize what the womb looks like. We're like, take an avocado shell and pat it with some like red feathers or red thread or red fabric or something, and just kind of like mimic what the womb looks like, and put a little baby doll in there,
Girls only
like
crafts.
just and if you're doing it with older daughters, that's something that I definitely wouldn't have been into, even probably as a 9-year-old. I probably would
You're
have
like,
like,
what is wrong
really,
with you,
mom?
mom?
But your daughter best, and so
Right.
we really did want to just give resources to everyone with a daughter of every kind of personality. And I've had some mom friends who've come to me and said, gosh, my daughter is just really, really uncomfortable with this stuff. I think she
Mhm.
would just feel so uncomfortable sitting here with me watching these videos talking about these things. What do you have that's like for a group setting? And
Mm.
so we're working on that now to
Oh, that's
figure
great.
out how we can talk to youth groups, how we can talk to parishes to implement this program while still maintaining that mother-daughter component of it, because we really believe
Right.
in that. We want
That's
moms and
essential.
daughters to be doing it together. But
Hmm.
if it makes your really kind of like sensitive 13-year-old feel really super weird to be doing this with just mom, if the
Yeah.
addition of a couple friends and their moms there would kind of ease things over, we want
Yeah.
to be able to provide that. And so we're working on that right now, figuring out what that would look like for
Mm.
groups of moms and daughters
Well,
to
that
do
makes a lot of
this
sense. I
together.
love that you're working on that. So
Yeah.
if people are listening right now and they're like, yes, I need this in my life, or if they just want to find out a little bit more information, do you have a website that's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, naturalwomanhood.org. And then there's a
Okay.
big banner right on the front page about our Mothers of Preteens program. You just click on that and you can find a curriculum overview. You can find samples of the videos. We've got what I think is a really good amount of information to help moms decide whether or not it's something they feel would be good for their daughters. And I also want to mention too that if you're a mom of an older daughter, a college age daughter who's like, oh, why didn't I do this when she was at home? Or if you're, a college age woman yourself listening, we do have a college program now
Oh,
too that we're
nice.
really excited about. It's our cycle mindfulness clubs. That's what we're calling them. And we've got, I think, like 8 different universities now where
Oh,
we're
nice.
piloting the program. And we hope to have, maybe even twice that many next year.
Yeah.
But it's a peer-led group, so we train the leaders. We take applications on a yearly basis, um, and just find women who are interested in leading them at their own universities. But it's basically a place where young women can get together and kind of learn this stuff together. So the
Mhm.
very basics of their menstrual cycle, the very basics of charting. And again, I want to really just emphasize none of this is natural family planning, right? If you're listening
Right.
to this and like, what? Natural Womanhood's teaching natural family planning to 8-year-olds and college girls? Like, what's wrong with that? It's not that. Okay. Yeah, it would be crazy inappropriate to be teaching NFP to unmarried women, to 8, 9-year-old girls.
Right,
We're not
right.
doing that. This is what we call, fertility awareness or
Sure.
menstrual cycle awareness. It's
Mhm.
the family planning component comes nowhere near any of this.
Yeah. And it
This
has
is just
ramifications for your health all around. That's
exactly, right? This
truly
is something
important.
that can be built upon when you are ready to learn the family planning aspects of it, when you're engaged
Mhm.
and getting ready to get married. Then you can go take your NFP class and learn the rules about how you learn that, how you use this information that you've hopefully already been taught how
Mhm.
to observe in your own body and record
Right.
and track. Then you can take an NFP class when you're engaged and learn, okay, now how do I turn this knowledge into action in terms of family planning? Right.
Right.
So this is like the very foundational building blocks of what could be used for natural family planning somewhere far down the line for
Yeah.
these younger girls, and maybe not so far down the line for the college girls, but still
Mhm.
we're not teaching them the rules of your family planning method,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
just to
Positive
make that clear,
education.
yeah, it's fertility awareness. It's how do you learn to pick up these signs that your body's giving you about where you are in your cycle, develop the habit of tracking it, and be able to make distinctions between the different phases, even not just from what you're seeing in your cycle, but how am I feeling? Like, wow, I
Yeah.
do feel a lot more energetic when I'm mid cycle and I know that I'm ovulating, my body's getting ready to release an egg. Or I do notice, boys a lot more around that time. If you're in college and you're trying to
Mhm.
guard your heart and guard, just protect yourself in relationships, know when you might be a little bit more vulnerable to
Mhm.
your boyfriend's advances or, and learn how to like be okay with that and learn how to manage it.
Mhm.
Um, and know that it's normal and it's not like there's something bad about you or that you're,
Sure.
it's really a lot of it comes down to is like letting women know you're normal. This is normal.
Yeah.
You will feel a different way. You will see different things in your underwear over the course of a month. And none of it means that you're sick or dying or have a
Right.
yeast infection that just will never ever go away. Like we've heard so many things from so many
Oh,
couples,
I bet.
just misconceptions. There's a member of our team who, when she started menstruating, she had no context for what it was. She Googled it. She thought she had cancer,
Oh gosh.
right? And do you want that for your
Mm.
8-year-old girl? When
No.
you start feeling
Terrible.
so just bogged down and I can't do this. I'm not an expert. I don't want to tell her. I don't want to, I don't want to be the one to do this. I want you to think about that. Think
Yes.
about your daughter bleeding.
Give her the gift of education.
Yes, with no context and
Right.
Googling it and thinking she has cancer. That
Mhm.
should be enough right there to get every mom listening,
Yes. Yes. Push through
fired up
that
about,
discomfort.
okay,
Yeah.
no, not my daughter. Not my daughter, Lord.
Absolutely.
And then, college girls too, just
Mhm.
what you need to know when you're going off
Mhm.
to college about yourself, about your body. Um, and also, you know, to empower girls who might be walking into campus health clinics and being told, oh, yeah, okay, we see you're here for painful periods and here's your birth control pill,
Right, I
you
know. The
know,
one size fits all prescription for every woman, right?
Right. Because, I'll tell a story about my little sister. She had that issue. She went to her campus health clinic and was offered birth control and said, well, I really don't want to get on birth control. I'm Catholic, I'm not crazy about the idea. And the PA or doctor, whoever it was at the clinic goes, the Pope won't know if you go on birth
Oh my
control.
gosh. How obnoxious.
Yes, right? Said that to my little sister, and
That's
my little
terrible.
sister, God bless her. I don't know. I don't think she bit her head off. It's a possibility, but I know
But
she never
right,
went
but these girls
back.
need education, and they need to be empowered to know what is good and what is right and what is natural about who
Right,
they are and who God made them to be. So
right.
we need to give them that gift of confidence that comes with information. So I love what you're doing there at Natural
Yeah.
Womanhood. Again, so it's naturalwomanhood.org. We will have that linked up in the show notes over at goodcatholic.com. Our guest today has been Grace Emily Stark from Natural Womanhood. Grace, I've really enjoyed this. This has been an enlightening and encouraging conversation. I love everything you're doing. Thank you so much for all of your good work and for coming on Girlfriends to share about it.
Well, thank you for having me, Danielle. I love talking about this stuff, and I love the work that I do and the work that we're doing, and feeling like we're going to be the ones. We're going to be this generation of moms. We're going to be the ones to right the ship. It's on us, and we don't have to be afraid or feel alone in that. We can be empowered and our daughters will all benefit from that. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing that. I love it. And we can all find out more at naturalwomanhood.org. All right, we've got more of the show coming up for you, but first we're going to take a quick break. I'm Danielle Bean, and you're listening to the Girlfriends Podcast.
All who have died in God's grace and friendship, but still imperfectly purified, are indeed assured of their salvation. But after death, they undergo a purification so as to achieve the holiness necessary to actually be able to enter into the joy of heaven. We want to look at the reality of purgatory in a very clear and objective fashion, as opposed to sort of the popular notions, or even the popular piety that has surrounded the actual doctrine of purgatory. Remember that no one lives alone, no one sins alone, and no one is saved alone. You and I are engaged together in the work of sanctification, my soul, your soul, and the souls of the faithful departed. Let's not forget them, but accompany them, as St. Ambrose said, all the way to the mountain of the glory of God.
Okay, ready for the part of the show where we share some listener feedback or a listener question. And this week I heard from Trisha, who emailed me, and Trisha said, "Thank you so much for your recent podcast about dealing with negative people. I heard you talking about it on the radio, and I decided to look up the show, and boy, am I glad I did. I deal with a lot of negativity from my own mother. She has an opinion, usually a bad one, about pretty much everything I do. And I get so tired of her comments about my appearance, my parenting, my job, and even my marriage. I loved listening to your tips, and you truly helped me to see that I need to set some boundaries with my mom. I love her and I want to respect her, but I need to also let her know how her comments make me feel. I'm going to address these things in a conversation with her this weekend, and I hope that you will pray for me and pray for her. Thanks for all you do, Trisha." Thank you so much for reaching out and letting me know that that show was helpful to you, Trisha. I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that with your mom, but I'm just grateful to know that the show was helpful to you and that it encouraged you to take a step like that. So for sure, I'm going to be praying for you and praying for your mom. One thing that occurred to me as I was reading your email was that sometimes we don't know that we have this effect on people, right? Maybe your mom isn't being vindictive, right? It sounds like, you love her and you respect her and you want a good relationship with her. Maybe she doesn't realize how negative she sounds, or the fact that most of what she's saying is negative. Like, we don't all have that kind of self-awareness. So it might be a really helpful thing. I'm going to pray that it's a fruitful conversation that you have with her. But sometimes we hesitate to have these conversations because it feels like, oh, this is just going to be conflict and I don't want it. And they're just going to get mad at me and it's going to turn into a fight and blah, blah, blah. But it really is a gift to people to give them honest feedback sometimes. So if you're just letting your mom know how she makes you feel, that is legitimate, So I think that is fair and legitimate. And I hope you'll email and let me know how it goes. But in the meantime, I will be praying for you. And I'm praying for you too. If you are listening to the Girlfriends Podcast, you have been prayed for, because I always pray for the people who are going to listen to the show. And I especially pray for people who reach out. And, I don't take that for granted. The fact that people share a little bit of their lives with me, that they trust me with some of their deepest struggles sometimes, that truly I'm honored that they trust me with that. And that they turn to me, and I don't always have the perfect answers, but I appreciate that I can be that source of support for you. That sometimes I can just be a listening ear. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's something going on in your life. I'm not promising you perfect answers. I'm not Dear Abby or anything, but I'm always grateful when people trust me with their questions and share with me the things that are going on in their lives, even on a very deep level. So thank you for sharing that, Trisha. And if anybody else has a question for me or something that you want to offer feedback, maybe on today's show, maybe on my conversation with Grace Stark, I would love to hear from you. You can email me, Danielle@daniellebean.com. You can leave a comment over at goodcatholic.com. Or if you're listening on YouTube, hello, glad you're here. Leave a comment below the video. I would love to hear from you there as well. All right, that's all the time we have for today, but I want to thank you for being here. It truly means the world to me that you spend some of your time each week right here with us, sharing as girlfriends. I love the community we have, and I love the fact that you're listening. So thank you so much for that. It is a gift to me. And until next time, I hope you enjoy your day and God bless your week.